Is now called to order. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our next item is we will do a roll call. Would the board members please state your name for the record?
Dr. Mark McKinney.
Byron Longworth.
Stan Cope.
Tony Anderson.
All right, thank you very much. And have all the board members received the minutes from the January 24th meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any corrections or addition to these minutes?
I wasn't there.
I see none.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And, all right, all in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, a second, excuse me, I blew right past that. Excuse me, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Now, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And none opposed? All right, motion passes accepting the meeting minutes for the January 24th, 2024 board meeting. Okay, so I want to review, I will briefly explain the Board of Adjustment procedures for tonight's meeting. Please listen, and if anyone wishing to speak on any of these matters discussed tonight has questions, please ask after I finish explaining the procedures. The variance request will be heard, and the board may approve with conditions, or deny the requested variance tonight. Alternatively, the board may continue a case to a specified date upon the request of the owner or applicant. A staff report detailing the variance request and the staff's recommendation will be presented to the board by Community Development Planner Malik Hall. The board may then ask questions of staff. The applicant will present their application and answer any questions from the board. Next, the board will hear from the other persons wishing to speak on the application. Comments should be limited to relevant factors. The applicant will be allowed to respond to comments from the public. The board will then close the public hearing for discussion on the petition. Upon no further discussion by the board, the chair will ask for a motion. The motion must state the reasons for granting or denying the application. Staff will provide written correspondence to the applicant and owners after this staff meeting regarding the approval or denial of the application. If approved, the owner may submit the appropriate building permit applications, or the city may proceed with reviewing building permit applications that may have already been filed as a result of the board approval of the variance. However, please note that any action by this board is not final for 30 days, and if the applicant moves forward prior to the expiration of the 30 days, they do so at their own risk. Does anyone have questions about the variance process at this time? All right, all persons wishing to speak or be heard on the variance petitions, please stand up to take the oath and be sworn.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Thank you.
Did everybody say yes? Okay, I only heard one person. Okay, all right.
All right. City Attorney Sashon will ask if board members have any ex parte communications.
At this time, if any board member has received any ex parte communication, either written or oral, regarding this matter, this is the time that you need to state what that is for the record. If you received anything in writing, then indicate so, and a copy of that is going to need to be made in order to give it to the clerk. Whether it's written or oral, you need to state when that communication occurred, with whom you had that communication or from whom you received it, and the sum and substance of that communication. And I will start immediately to my left. Doctor, if you'd please state whether or not you had such a communication.
I have not.
Okay, next.
I have not.
I have not.
I have not. Thank you.
Okay. All right, the Temple Terrace Board of Adjustment will now open the public hearing on the variance BA 2401 for 319 Brentwood Avenue is submitted by, is it Smyrna, is that correct? Smyrna Khan. Brentwood Drive, yes, correct. Or, I'm sorry, I have Brentwood Avenue. It's Brentwood Drive? Okay, great. 319 Brentwood Drive. Thank you. All right, we will start with the staff presentation. Community Development Planner Malik Hall, please make the staff's presentation regarding variance request BA 2302.
Good evening, board, chair, members, staff. For a quick correction, my name is Malik.
Malik, I
No,
apologize.
you're
Thank
fine. I
you.
just want to make sure. I need to say it now before it gets lost. So,
Thank you. I'm sorry.
no, you're perfectly fine. So we're here March 28th, 2024, for the variance request application BA 24-01. The subject property has a zoning district of R10 single-family residential. It's located in the flood zone X. Its acreage is approximately 0.40 acres and 17,442 square feet. The existing variance under this property is a principal structure side yard setback reduction, which is under BA-22-05. The characteristics of this single-family residency is a two-story home at a square footage of 4,178 square feet, which includes a garage and then the related driveway. These are aerials of the property. So we have an overhead aerial and then a front facade. So an aerial on the left, front facade image on the right. Additional image. A more up-close view of the front facade, more so on the driveway area, and then the angled view for the aerial. The variance requested is to increase the maximum lot coverage for this property from the Land Development Code standard of 47.5% to 52%. The reason for this requested increase in the maximum lot coverage is the proposed pool exceeds the available lot coverage. The available lot coverage left for this property is 123 square feet. The area of the proposed pool is 915 square feet. Dimensions being 40 feet and 8 inches by 22 feet and 6 inches. So the 47.5% equals 8,285. So the maximum lot coverage for this property is 8,285 square feet. The existing lot coverage for this property is 8,162 square feet. The proposed pool is 915 square feet. So if you were to add the area of the proposed pool to the existing lot coverage, it equals 9,077 square feet, which also equals 52%, which is why they're requesting to increase the lot coverage from 47.5 to 52%. These are the specs for the proposed design. It includes the concrete decking around the pool, the body of the pool itself, which includes a swim out, a bench, and a spa component. According to the applicant, the drainage issue causes water to collect on the property, and if the section of the driveway that she is willing to cut were removed, then it would negatively impact the foundation of her home. Whether there is a drainage problem or not, the proposed site plan can be redesigned without the need for a variance. Based on the calculations submitted by the applicant, the applicant may have a pool of up to 123 square feet without the need for variance. There appears to be no hardship. Any grievances result from the applicant's opposition to reducing the size of the proposed pool or the size of the existing driveway or any combination thereof. As for the findings of fact, staff finds that 8 out of the 9 findings of fact are negative. Are there any questions?
Just want to get the report real quick to look at her application. So I do have a question. So is your primary argument basically that, I think what I'm gathering from this is that this is a really big house, and because the house is so big is why they're out of space?
And the driveway, right?
The improvements on the property are at such a large scale that the proposed pool is not permissible because it exceeds the maximum lot coverage.
And your argument is that a pool could fit if it was just smaller, right?
123 square feet or less, correct.
Did you
Okay.
see there was a previous, oh, I'm sorry. Were you still,
No.
Okay. Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, please go ahead.
you said there was a previous variance on the property as well?
Yes, but that was for a side yard setback reduction, so that variance does not relate to lot coverage. It did allow expansion of the garage, but that's already included in the calculation,
Okay,
so.
all right, perfect.
And it was a minor expansion at that.
All right. Any of the other board members have any questions for staff at this time? All right. Thank you.
You.
All right, we will move on to the applicant's presentation. If you could come forward, please state your name and address for the record and make your presentation. You will have 15 minutes.
My name is Simona Khan. I'm at 319 Brentwood Drive. I'm the owner. I've brought with me my engineer. He's the head drainage engineer at the DOT on McKinley, so he's very local. He also happens to live at 327 St. Augustine, so he's very local. He understands the property. What happened is I had planned to do a pool and then decided not to. And then as the time went by, I decided that I wanted a pool. We do have excess lot coverage, which I did offer to cut back. So we were in compliance with the 47.5%. I had told Abdul that I'm willing to cut it back, but he stopped me. He said, if you cut back from the side of the property, which is where I have the bandwidth to cut back, he said it's going to compromise the foundation of the home. The reason is the location, well, he'll explain it in more detail, but every time it rains, not even when it's rainy season, outside of rainy season, and Malik did make it clear that the videos will be available, every time it rains, because of where the location of the property is, we have excess water coming in from Glen Oaks and Brentwood, which is literally flooding my property. I put in French drain, I think they're called French drains, I put in drains.
Trench, you put in a trench.
Trench drains, we put in 2. There's so much debris coming in from the street that it even fills up the drains. So anything that I've done to mitigate the situation is still not effective. We went to the city and we tried to find a solution. They said, well, you can build a pool, but then you have 6 months in which to cut the slab back. The problem is the city is telling me that there's no real timeline as to when they will fix the drainage issue, and it is. There's a term for it. It's
That would be like inverse condemnation or adverse possession to store, public, water on a private piece of property. So that would be adverse possession of Ms. Sumarna's property.
And the application covers the excess water that's coming onto the lot. So I think Abdul said it's the water that's coming on. It doesn't even account for any remediation that we might do. So I had told the city that once they remediate, we can cut the slab back. We also offered to put in a swale to counteract the water, and that was the last sheet that was given to you. The reason the diagram is small, because I wanted to point out the date on the email as well. This dates back to February the 12th. We met with the city and they had said, well, what is your solution? So the solution is to put this trench at the back. Abdul, as a PE, has signed off on that as well. That would adequately support any excess or going over. But we've tried to work with the city in every capacity available. I'm happy to cut back that slab, but they've not made it a viable solution for us. I will let Abdul take over because he knows more.
You can stay here. I'm not much of
Okay.
a public speaker, but what I've offered to do is to put in an exfiltration system that would pretty much, capture runoff from a 100-year storm, which would be like 11 inches of depth, and completely, mitigate offsite impacts. And I guess I'm not much of a, I don't have a background in planning, but the LDC mandates 47.5% to mitigate off-site, runoff impact. And what we've proposed is to completely capture the runoff and percolate it in the ground so that there is no, effect to the, neighboring or downstream properties. And and Sumarna was, more than happy to cut the slab back. And by happenstance, I was visiting her house, and there was a rainfall event, and I just looked out, and there was a torrent that was, passing by the side of her house, roughly about 3 inches in depth. And, that would be very detrimental to the house. And I stopped her from doing that. And as of this day, she's still willing to cut the slab back. But as long as, the city is willing to, mitigate the runoff from, being incident on a property, from entering a property, so.
You can't walk on the land when it's raining, and like I say, in off rainy season, you can't even walk down there because there's so much water coming down. I can't access the side of my property at all.
I want to make sure that if you have more, feel free to add it. I can go ahead and open the.
15 minutes. You want me to
Yeah.
keep
No, you don't have to use
we've
15
said-
minutes.
we've said all that, all that's kind of relevant. Basically, she's more than happy to cut the slab back. And, the city made a point that, that she has 123 feet to build a pool. So that pool would literally be like a very skinny pool that would be like 2 feet wide by, 50 feet long. I mean, it's kind of, it wouldn't necessarily fit the description of like a normal pool. Or it would be like a 10 by 10 pool, which is.
Well, I've been willing to work with the city. It just doesn't seem to be the other way around. They want me to be able to put the pool and then cut the slab back, which compromises the integrity of my home. Yet they're not willing to tell me what date by which they'll fix the drainage problem by. And the map will show you the amount of water coming in. Did you say it's 4 feet
Yeah,
high?
it's if you look at the topography or the lay of the land, roughly half of Glen Oaks, that's that runs north-south. About 1,000 feet of Glen Oaks and maybe 1,000 feet of Brentwood Drive are incident onto a property. Her property pretty much sits on a sag, so both these streets come down, barrel down the driveway, and that's really what the crux of her problem is.
And I'm the only one actually affected as well. My neighbours are not in the same boat. Both streets collide with the water flow straight onto my driveway.
And granting this variance would not move the goalposts of the LDC to where every resident in the city of Temple Terrace would say, hey, we want another additional 1,000 square feet, because none of the problem is very unique to Ms. Sumarna. That her house is the only house in that entire I don't know, I wouldn't call it a subdivision, but on those two streets that that affect her house. So
Yeah, and so far Abdul mentioned something. He helped me write this application. It's not just the water that's coming from the road. We accounted for that, but then there's road coming off the golf course and other people's property also, which it accumulates into what's coming onto my driveway.
so
And
go ahead.
I've also had to put a barrier up outside my garage to make sure that my garage is no longer flooding as well, because that's how much water they're dumping onto my property.
I did back of the napkin calculations, and roughly there is about 20,000 square feet of impervious area that's incident to her property. That would be the equivalent of lining up 20 pools around her house. So that's the amount of water that she's getting, and that's not including the green area from the golf course. The green area too, once the ground gets saturated, it creates runoff. So the green area plus the pavement area, she's getting a lot of water. She deserves some consideration, definitely so.
All right, anything else you'd like to add? And you will get another chance to speak, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, before you sit down, are there any questions from the board for the applicant?
I have some questions. by the format of this, we're supposed to let you speak, then ask the questions, but I actually had this question the whole time. I need some explanation, if you wouldn't mind, about what's this slab and what does it mean exactly? The slab for the house, like what is this?
I have a large driveway, and I also did a driveway around the side. So the front driveway, I don't want to cut. I have 4 children. The oldest is getting her driver's permit, I think, when she's 15, which is in the next couple of months. So I want to keep that driveway. So the only area that I have to cut it is down the side of the house. That's what I'm happy to cut back, but I cannot do that without compromising my foundation.
So basically, I just to understand correctly, the argument is that this concrete slab on the ground is in some way stopping the water from coming to the house.
Oh, yeah, because it goes...
That's what I missed this whole time
Yeah,
of coming
no,
through,
that's
like I want
okay.
clarity
So-
of this.
If you look, if I tell you...
Malik had a good picture up, but
If you look at this boundary survey, the black and white,
I'm
you'll
sorry,
see that...
Is there any way we get that picture up again of the front of the house?
You have
Can
to-
you go to the slide?
The presentation has to come back up.
We'll do it, but you gotta.
Okay, no problem. No.
Yeah, I just,
Actually, it is highlighted if you did get a color copy, which I think you did. It's this blue line on the side.
Your videos are also on the desktop. So
Okay.
Just so you know.
Can we, do you mind if you play them?
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let me
hit
jump in here. Yeah.
If you hit escape, the videos are on the desktop.
But the slab,
Yes.
that portion that you review is
Do you want the site plan or the
Yeah,
image?
that's
This
good.
is fine.
Okay.
That's good.
last one, yeah.
in Malik, there.
So what we would cut back is the driveway to the side, the slab to the side.
To the right.
That's to the right. That's what I would cut back. But that's where the well,
Gonna show the site plan. Sorry.
okay. Yeah, that. But what I should also tell you is that's what we would cut back to make it compliant. However, that's where most of the water's coming. But it's not the only place the water's coming. It's coming all along the driveway.
I have one more question. Did this slab, was this built, did it have anything to do with the water coming on the property, which is why it was built? Or
No.
was-
No. This was a problem that was realized after we, built the, the slab. But I might also like to add a point here. The bump out or the slab that Ms. Sumarna is talking about, the road pretty much sits on a curve. And it's very hard to back the car out from the garage, right onto the road. So the bump out or the slab in the front of the house, it helps her make a T-turn.
I got it. I just wanted to clarify that if we were discussing the hardship, the driving, that's actually not a hardship, but the drainage stuff potentially could be. But where I'm having an issue is that basically, I've never heard of concrete itself being, like a concrete slab being there to protect a house from runoff water. This
No,
is the
the-
first time I've
the-
ever heard that. So that's why I was wondering if it was built
Let me
for that
clarify
purpose.
for you. We can cut the slab back, but the underlying soils are extremely sandy in this area. So what that does is it starts eroding, and some of those issues were addressed when the house was renovated.
Okay.
Yeah, the loss of soil and stuff like that. They were taken care of. So.
The more concrete we cut back, it exposes more
It
land
gets closer
to
and
the
closer
side
to
of
the
house.
foundation.
Yeah, and then it will
So-
compromise the foundation.
I don't have any more questions.
Okay, great. Does any other board? Yes, please go ahead.
So if you were to cut back that side, it would be in compliance?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that confirmed? Okay, and then you said that the city is going to help with the drainage issues, but you just don't know when?
I'm sorry, let me hold it a minute. I think we've got an issue with,
Oh. Microphone.
it says it's on.
It says it's on. Okay.
Yeah, it's showing on.
Do I need to put this one in? Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I'm so sorry. Please go
Sorry.
ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. You said that the city is going to be putting in something to help with the drainage issues, you
So-
just don't know when?
When we had asked them, they told me that someone else had had a similar problem and they were years away. So when I said, well, when? They said, well, it could be, at least 2 years. So they said you could wait to have the pool until then, but I don't see why I should have to wait 2 years when they're the ones illegally dumping water on my property. And then the offset is that we'll do the trench at the back. So we at least have that solution still in place.
Is there anything, and Malik, this may be a question for you, is there anything that we can get confirmation of the city that they're actually going to be doing that work, even though we may not have a timeline established?
I would defer that even further back.
Sorry. I just know your name, so I'm gonna keep saying it now.
This time,
Well, I guess if the applicant wants to finish first, and then I can.
Yes, please come on up.
Brian McCarthy, city engineer. So I can kind of at least show you what the city is. I just wasn't sure if you wanted to continue discussing with the applicant before I answer your question
My
versus.
questions depend on your answer, so.
Well, let me tell you what, let me do this. Did anybody else have any questions for the applicant at this time?
I may after I hear his.
No, we'll be back. Okay, so okay, please go ahead, sir.
So this is just kind of where we are in terms of the city side. So what you see here are contours we went and surveyed back in 2017, I believe, for a water main project in the neighborhood. So we kind of use this as our baseline. And so the 319 Brentwood Drive is the driveway that's to the south and to the left of the screen, I guess. To the bottom, to the left, where you see the 5725 and the 5750 red contours. So that just kind of gives you where the existing driveway was at the time. Judging from the contours, you can see with the red lines, everything off of Glen Oaks is the road to the north, and then Brentwood is the road moving from left to right. Everything does go towards the applicant's house. Looking at the driveway specifically, you can see as if it appears as if there might be a hump with the 5725 and the 575. It appears as if it's going up. You can also see a small 5725 as well to the right of the driveway. And then there's a 5757. This is just kind of give you an idea of what we got from our survey 6 or 7 years ago. Looking at Google Earth, this was a photo off of Google Maps from 2013, I believe. This is just what the existing house and the driveway looked like at the time. This is kind of a close-up, again, using Google Maps from 2013. The driveway is to the left. You kind of see a, what we call like a stain line with the leaves that are kind of an indication as if water was ponding there, as if there was a hump at some point in the past. And this is just, again, another Google Maps shot of the driveway with the assumed stain line with the leaves. So this was the part of the permit application for the driveway. So there's a lot of numbers here, and I'll try to pick out the ones that at least are, I won't say relevant, but are elevation related. So you can see the 5723 there at the middle of the driveway. That's kind of where the driveway meets the road. And if you follow that curb line that's kind of moving from left to right of the screen, you see a 5756 to the left, you see the 5723, and then you see a 5720. And again, that's the assumption that the water is all draining from the left side of the road all the way down to the right side. And looking at the driveway, as you're moving towards the house, you can see a 5765 and a 5757. Again, kind of showing us what appears to be a high point in the driveway. This was just a field shot of the driveway when we went out back in December. From our, I won't say point of view, but from what we could tell, it appears as if the driveway's been lowered. And this is just from the applicant's house looking towards the road, and again, it appears as if the driveway is now sloping from the roadway towards the house. So what we've asked the applicant for is just an updated post-construction survey before we decide what our next steps are going to be.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Can I ask you, sorry. I have a question. You said you asked for the survey, but I mean, I guess you can't give an official answer, but would, if the survey shows that the elevations are still off pretty consistently, would the city be willing to help with the drainage issues she's having? I know that's a tough question to answer.
Until we have a chance to review what their post-construction survey would look like, we're not prepared to provide a recommendation in terms of what we would do.
As a rebuttal to Mr. McCarthy's, comments, when there's an elevation difference of almost like 4 feet, that's like, barreling down Glen Oaks and also Brentwood. we're beginning to split hair in terms of, that we might be off like, quarter inch. So quarter inch is not going to like offset, 4 feet of fall in the street. And, the deposition of leaves on the driveway, it shows that this is a historical problem that the city has not addressed. The leaves get deposited, when runoff, obviously is, entering the driveway and making its way back. And so, so that's not a, basically those leaves or the driveway, the driveway geometry that existed would not deflect, runoff from, heading due south and the back of the house.
We don't even know
So-
what time frame those pictures were taken in. Was it rainy season? Was it not? The way Abdul explained it to me, with the amount of runoff coming in, let's say there's a quarter-inch difference. Let's just say that's the case. Even if that got remediated, it's still like taking a bucket of water out of the ocean. The 4-foot excess, well, from both streets is still coming in. It's not going to remediate the problem.
Keep going. You got the floor, so please go ahead. Continue on.
Would you be willing to submit the survey to the city?
Yes,
to
ma'am.
get confirmation from them that they are willing to help and delay your variance request until that time? And then get a variance request with the condition that you can build the pool, but once the repairs are made by the city, you have to cut off that piece on the side?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And then the question is then, do we still build a swale in the meantime or not?
I mean, we can mitigate for it. I mean, it's, that'll alleviate any of the city's or, concerns. We're just going to capture all the excess runoff that's generated from the pool, and, we'll store it on our site.
If I can interrupt for a moment, I think we're like devoting a lot of time to something that's sort of an extra piece of this, but we need to focus back on hardship here and also what is a reasonable use of the property. There's not been any testimony with regard to why there needs to be a pool this large, because application of our law does not prevent this person from having a swimming pool that's at least 12 by 10, which many people have as a normal pool. So the question, and if you do grant a variance, you have to remember, it needs to be the minimum variance necessary to afford this person a pool. And then you go back to, they're not being denied a pool because they can have one here. So the issue is, why does it have to be 40 feet by 22 feet?
Well, that includes the concrete. I'm sorry.
When a pool is already able to be built on this particular piece of property. And then you have to look at whether this is a self-created hardship by putting in all of this concrete in the first place. And I believe the answer too was, we didn't put the concrete in order to protect the foundation. It just happens to be there. And now the issue is, well, if we take it out, there's too much water on the side of my house.
Yeah,
So there are other issues having to deal with hardship and with variance before you start talking about building swales and when's the city going to fix, deal with a drainage problem, which this isn't the only drainage problem in the whole entire city. There are other neighborhoods, other people, and other communities that are also dealing with water at this, water runoff or excess rain due to global warming, I don't know. But we seem to be getting a little far afield here with the city taking a responsibility for this, especially when there's also been testimony, and you can tell from the picture, the driveway itself is lower than the road and even lower than their yard.
I don't think the road.
You'll have your
Okay,
turn.
hang on, everybody. Well, I was going to say, go back. I promise I will give you a chance to respond to everything,
So, my job is to point out these particular facts, and we have to focus in on what are the rules applicable to the law of variance. So,
See, the house was primarily built during the dry season. And, we've not had, last year was an exceptionally, dry period. And we didn't really the rubber never hit the road, so to speak. We didn't see that, the rainfall like we saw, in the recent past. So there's no way to tell, that the driveway, protected the house. It actually does. It protects the foundation. So, I don't see, the point that the attorney's making, that somehow we're trying to have the cake and eat it. This house is an existing house. It didn't, come off a fresh slate. It was it kind of grew organically. It's a 1960s house. The city should be happy. They should commend Ms. Khan to turn a piece of junk into something that's worthwhile, that, presents the city in a favorable light. And, I don't, and there's not going to be any adverse impact to anybody in the city from what she's proposing to do. So, and yeah, go ahead.
Hang on a second, just, let's, if you don't mind, you mind I go ask one thing real quick? What I want to make sure that when you're talking, that everybody understands is that the board, the only thing that we can grant a variance for is if there's a hardship due to the land, not because of the city or anything else. That's what we have to look at. Under the land use, I mean, a pool is permitted, but it's not guaranteed. So there's no reason that you have to put a pool in. I mean, it's for a single-family dwelling. There's a single-family dwelling on the property. I understand the desire to want to expand, and put a pool in, which you can without the variance, as you noted, it was noted around 10 by 12. But the issue is that you're saying, I mean, I understand everything you're saying, but all of this has to do with drainage. It has to do with working with the city. It doesn't have to do with the hardship the land's presenting that prevents you from doing something that you're entitled to do with the property. And that's what we've got to get to, and that's what we've got to dig into. What is that?
When you say 10 by 12, that's the space that's left. There has to be 5 feet away from the edge of the house. So 5 feet cuts in. There needs to be a border at the back of the pool. There needs to be sides for people to walk around. What's left of 123 feet if we put all of that in? The pool's 3 by 3 foot? I mean, in all fairness, it's not giving me scope to put in a pool at all.
And like we said, sir, right from the get-go, we're more than happy to take the slab out. But as an afterthought, it is where the overland flow is getting conveyed to the back of the property and downstream.
I have a question.
Oh, please.
So this is a very specific question. It's short. If you took the slab out, is there any possible way you could stop the water from punishing the house without the slab?
No.
Why is there no other remedy on earth, like any sort of anything you could do to help to basically strengthen the foundation along that side of it, other than this large concrete driveway? I mean, there has to be different things that could be done, right?
Let's say there is. I mean, I'm going to let him answer that, but then I incur all of the costs for a situation that I have not created. The water's being dumped on my land by the city's, inadequate drainage system.
The earth is draining it, not necessarily the city, but...
Well, the layout of the road.
Well, she has a power line that runs under the driveway. So she has utilities, potential, gas line conflicts. So...
If I may, I'm in agreement with the attorney here. We need to, if you will, zero back in regarding whether or not there is a hardship that's being created, first and foremost. And I think that's the essence of the issue here. We need to, as a board, determine whether or not a hardship exists, and whether or not you are making a definitive case to identify whether one exists. As a board, that's what we need to.
Well, I want to present to the board, sir.
Right, and believe me, I understand what you're articulating, your perspective, whatnot. But as a board, we need to make sure. We need to say, does a hardship exist? Yes or no?
So the board has to ask itself, is there excess
pertaining-
water that's coming on the site?
pertaining
Is that
to
a
the
hardship,
variance.
or is
Well,
that-
hang on, please don't everybody talk at once. Go ahead.
That's from my vantage point. That's what we need to determine. Does a hardship exist, and if so, yes or no, and whether or not we need to move to the affirmative or to the negative regarding the approval of said variance.
Well, the board has to ask itself the question, is 4 inches of water that's traversing on the side of the house, is that a hardship or is that a benefit to Ms. Marna? And if you think that's not a hardship,
I'm not
yeah,
saying.
that's the question you really need to ask yourselves. And
And-
Malik, can you play that video, please?
If you hit escape on the, hit escape and then the videos are on, well, I guess, minimize the presentation.
I would say that we're talking about two different issues here.
The videos are right there, next, below the presentation, or next to it, those are your 4 videos.
I want to see the video. I want to see what it says.
And this was not rainy season.
That's over that piece of slab?
Yeah. I cannot walk, I cannot do anything. The drain is, all the debris is blocking the drains that I spent money putting in. I have to keep having them cleared out. Picks up debris from all the roads and it dumps it all into my property.
Are you
No,
you good? I just want to make sure you were finished. Okay, please go ahead.
I think one thing to note here is I see from the video, this could be a hardship on your land. It could be, but I think the city has to help determine that. So we do not have to vote on this issue tonight. That's just one thing I want to point out. I think he said it during the beginning. And if you were to submit something in the city and the city were to say, yes, there's obviously a drainage issue and it's because of XYZ, you know, you could come back and and I'm not saying we would approve it, but I'm saying you could repurpose this variance and we could add conditions on it where once the repairs are made, you would have to remove that. So I'm not telling you that's the answer, but I'm telling you those are options available to you.
No, we were like ready
Yeah.
and able to meet that, you know.
I think the proof, you know, that there is a true hardship with the land is gonna be with the city, right?
But what more is needed? I mean, I'm also suffering a financial hardship. I know that's not your concern, but I've paid the deposit for the pool. Pool prices have gone up, and now I'm going to be out of pocket. The longer we leave this, the more out of pocket I become. And it still goes back to, even if there's a quarter or half an inch variance on that driveway, I cannot, that volume of water is still going to be there, no matter if we raise that driveway half an inch or not. And that's a static problem.
No, and I get that, and that part's tough because we can't really vote on that piece.
No, I understand. So my question then becomes, so what if we get and I don't mean that flippantly, but I mean, so what if we get the new survey? It doesn't change the situation at all, even if it's raised another half inch. It doesn't change anything.
Even if you build it up 2 inches, it's not going to change much.
Well, and I understand that, but I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I think what she's trying to emphasize is that if we bring this to a vote right now, based off of the information that we have, then that's final. You can't reapply. You'd have to reapply. I believe it's 6 months. Is that correct? At least 6 months before you could reapply again. Many other things. It looks like there's an open item from the city from the engineering department that they still need to do some work. I think it is your choice. If you want us to vote, we will vote. I want to make that very clear. But I think what the suggestion is that maybe take, another month, ask for a continuance, talk to the city, see if we can get some more things. What is the status of this elevation the waiting on? There's this report, the post-construction survey. What's the status on
I
that?
didn't pay for another survey because that puts me out of pocket again for a situation where the drainage specialist for the DOT, has the head drainage engineer at the DOT, even if we raise it half an inch, it's not going to remediate the flow problem. So what's the point in backing and forthing with engineering, and I keep going out of pocket for a problem that's not going to be remediated?
Well, the issue is that this is a pool. That is not, you already are making use of the land as it's designed, as it's zoned. You have a single-family house on it. While you're entitled to a pool, the board doesn't have the authority to grant a variance for a pool because a pool is not a hardship. The hardship of the land would be is if you couldn't build the house to the minimum specifications, or if it couldn't sit on the lot a certain way because the way the lot was designed, some of the things. But a pool is not something that is considered necessary as part of the house. You have everything that the land has that the zoning has allowed it to do. I won't disagree that you have a very valid argument, but what I'm saying is I don't think this board is going to be able to do what you want because it's outside of what our authority is to approve a variance for. So what I was offering is if you want to go, I know you don't want the delay, and I completely understand that.
Well, and the money for, a new elevation survey, when we know, regardless of the difference we find, it's not going to change the impact on my property. Like, we all agree that there's a problem with the drainage on my property. We all agree that. I'm still, like, I appreciate your solution, that can we, once it's remediated by the city, I will happily cut back that slab. I've been offering that from day one, and in the meantime, we have the swale as the offset. I can't offer more than that. The elevation, apart from costing me more money, the elevation survey is not going to remediate the issue. Going back to his words, which succinctly put it, is like taking a bucket of water out of the ocean. That we're back to that same scenario.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Why can't you make this pool smaller and not ask for as big of a variance as you're asking for?
Well, okay, so if we baseline for what I asked versus what they're saying, 123 square feet, what's the compromise in between? Because I still need the concrete land outside it. We still
She'll
need
need the
the
decking
pavers. Yes, the
and-
decking, that's the word.
And there's a big concrete slab behind the house, too. So it's not just the one running down the side. You've got a great big concrete
That's under the
slab.
roof. That's already under a roof, so she'll have to cut the roof and the slab.
Okay,
or,
did
you
you
know.
add that on yourself?
Yes.
Okay, so you covered more of the ground yourself by adding on that concrete out the back?
Yes.
All right, so that adds to your self-created hardship, because once you finally have covered so much of that lot with something, you have reduced your own available space for a pool.
I understand
So
what
rather,
you're saying. I
okay,
very
so
clearly
rather
understand.
than
I'm
even,
willing to cut it back. I'm willing to cut it back, but I cannot cut it back because of the water draining onto my property. I have said from day one, I will happily cut it back when it's not going to compromise the foundation and integrity of my home.
Right. It doesn't make sense to cut like a slab that's under a roof,
okay.
when she can
so-
cut it by the side.
That was the answer to that question. Thank you. So now, you don't want a 12 by 10-foot pool. Any possibility that you'd be satisfied with a 30 by 20-foot pool or a 25 by 15-foot pool? A 40-foot, 8-inch by 22.5-foot pool is a pretty big pool.
But that's not the pool though, is it? Let's be fair, that includes the decking. That's not actually the pool.
Well, I can't tell from this tiny little drawing how big the decking is. I can't read any of these dimensions on here.
Okay, then I would, if I'd have
So-
known, I'd have made a larger copy, but I did
And
not
it's
know.
not just a pool, it looks like you got a spa added into
There is.
that,
There's
too.
a hot tub and there's
So
a
you're
central.
asking for a lot more than a regular average pool.
Okay, you say that, and I do understand what you're saying. However, the countermeasure to all of this is cutting the slab to the side of the house, and that's something I'm unable to do because of a hardship that's been forced upon me.
But you are able to reduce what you're asking for.
I can, but my question is, I'm not saying that I won't, but the question comes back to why should I? Because I'm having all of this water illegally dumped on my property.
You is because you're just not entitled to a pool.
But I am
no, ma'am.
entitled to
To
not have
answer
the
her
water.
question-
Excuse me, just one second. I'm sorry.
I'm
No, I think your microphone was not on. I think that's what they were flagging me for.
So equal. She'll cut an equal or an equivalent area off, like the slab, to offset the pool. She doesn't have a problem with that.
I've been trying to say something for a while.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like the solution is pick the pool or pick the slab. We kind of just are going to have to pick one of the two. I don't think that we're going to be able to get through this. I'm hearing the attitude of the board. I haven't decided how I would vote yet, but the attitude of the board is if you want the pool, you have to get rid of the slab. I don't know what the solution is to the drainage problem. I get it, but that's what it sounds like to me, that we don't need a variance if we can cut the slab back. That's the simple answer, basically.
I can't cut the slab. That's the whole point. And that's why we're here, because I cannot cut. He stopped me from cutting the slab.
Then it's a smaller pool or the slab. Like it's going to be one of the two is what it sounds like to me about how the vote's probably going to go if we vote today.
The other question I have is this, okay. If you were to get this pool,
Yes.
how does that address the unfortunate issue that you have regarding that
Still has to
flooding?
get addressed. The runoff has to get addressed.
How does getting this pool, if it's granted, say we grant you the variance for this pool, how does that mitigate or address the issue of the water pooling where it is right now? how does the implementation or
That's the
building up?
question for Mr. Ryan.
I get that.
We have to wait in good faith until.
I get that, but that's one of the things we would have to consider. If we were to grant this and say, you go ahead and get this pool, the situation will still exist.
We will have a swale on the back though. That's what that extra one single sheet of paper was, that we will build the swale to offset the size of the pool.
Right. But it still will not, it
won't
will not-
mitigate
It won't mitigate for
the
the
drainage
runoff off
issue.
the- Yeah.
Okay, one second, did you have something,
I just want one quick question. So
Okay.
the swale you would be paying for to get
Yes.
that in turn. And then I just want one clarification. If the city, and he may need to answer this question, I'm sorry, this may be a question for you. If the city were to determine that there is an issue here and that you were going to put the work in here, that is the only way to mitigate the issue, is what you're saying, correct?
Yeah, because I can't risk my foundation issues. When I renovated the home, there were a few spots where, because of the way the soil is and the excess rain, I had to remediate. When I bought the house, actually, I found out later that the garage doors that were on the old garage, they had water damage on. So clearly the problem had always existed. I just didn't realize at the time what I was looking at. It's only in hindsight, when we saw the excess water coming in, that was put two and two together.
And the only way the city can make that determination is by them submitting this survey and you doing the research you need to do, correct?
That would be our first step, yes.
And how long would that process take you? Average.
I'd say right now with all the concerns that we're addressing, anywhere between, after we get the survey, we'll probably do some type of initial review just to get us whether or not this needs to be pushed further, faster, or slow it down. Kind of hesitant to give you a time frame until we get a chance to see the survey.
Plus or minus a year. Can you answer that?
In terms of our review, it'd be less than a year. In terms of the construction, it would have to fall into the city council budget at that.
Yeah, not the construction, just, okay, thank you.
Mr. Hall, I think you had something you wanted to add?
Yes. Can we go back to the videos?
I think it's this one.
Oh, I didn't know how to cut it off. I just wanted to pause the... Well, either way, you guys see this driveway here? Why does this side of the driveway, why is this unavailable to be reduced?
The bump out, that's to like really make a 3-point turn, and rather than back the car out into the, into the street.
You're telling me all that is necessary to conduct that maneuver?
I also have 4 children who will be about to
Let me
start
speak
driving.
first, please.
Okay.
So we understand that you have 4 children and that this driveway is very important for their growth, for them to be able to drive their vehicles. That is understood. But in terms of the options available, there's a slab on the side that can't be cut because of the structural integrity of the home. That's also understood. The slab on the rear, I guess that's also part of the structural integrity of the home, or because there's roofing, that's not available as well. The last available piece is that section of the driveway. That is the last available piece unless you want to cut out a portion of your house. So when we talk about lot coverage, which to inform you guys, lot coverage is more than just drainage concern. In City Temple Terrace, lot coverage is not specifically reference to drainage. There are aspects of it that are talking about impervious material or impermeability, but lot coverage does not equate to drainage for the City of Temple Terrace, for our jurisdiction, for our land development code. So, though Abdul is right what he's saying, him being the expert drainage engineer, that does not apply to the variance because it is for lot coverage. The drainage concern does not apply to this variance, or may not even justify a hardship because it is a variance for lot coverage. That's like saying as someone who sees a lot of the permits in our jurisdiction, I've denied sheds because of lot coverage, even though they said they'd be raised. Why? Because at the end of the day, if you have a raised structure that allows drainage into the ground, we still count it as lot coverage. To add to that, just a note, name off a couple of findings of fact. Finding of fact F. Any variance granted shall be the minimum variance which makes possible the reasonable use of land, buildings, or property. My comment in response to that, staff's comment in response to that. The installation of the pool at the lot coverage requested is not necessary to make reasonable use of the property, and the applicant can enjoy the home without the need for a variance. The chairman has referenced that in terms of you have reasonable use of your home. The applicant could redesign the site plan to reduce the proposed lot coverage. That has been stated by our city attorney and some of the board as well. G, the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. The special conditions and circumstances do result from the actions of the applicant. The applicant is not responsible for the location of the home. However, there are options that the applicant is able to consider. Improvements made by the applicant did not reserve sufficient space for the pool. That was explained to us when she said at one point she wanted the pool, then said, you know what, I don't want it anymore, and expanded the driveway. Now here we are again where the pool is desired, but what happened? The driveway was expanded to an amount that no longer accommodates for the proposed pool. The last comment I want to make in terms of finding a fact, I know you guys have the document, but in terms of one I want to make clear, I, which is the one I've been reiterating part of my presentation, allowing the variance will not result in substantial justice being done, and there is no hardship that will be suffered due to denial of the variance. The applicant can have a pool of up to 123 square feet without the need for a variance. As has been stated several times in this meeting, a pool is not a right, it is a privilege. For our zoning districts, there's under the codes for the zoning district, there is no section or regulation, no condition that says you are owed a pool. So I just want to make it clear that, of course, a variance is not necessarily about what is by right, but in this case, this variance is specifically about lot coverage, which does not equal drainage and water mitigation. It's simply, do you have a structure covering your property? Sheds, driveways, homes, pools. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Hall from the board? Okay, thank you. We have additional questions for the applicant from the board?
I have one more question. Is that a concrete driveway that leads up to your front door?
It's a path,
It's what?
like a walking path.
Is that calculated into the?
It is. It's 130 square feet. Look, I'm willing to cut back. I am, but within reason, because I do believe the hardships created by the city.
And you know, Mr. Malik talked about the bump out, the little parking area to the left of the driveway. And that's exactly where the water, funnels and turns around. So, cutting that out would pose some additional dangers to the house. And I heard him say that the land development code does not correlate with water or drainage. It does. It has a direct bearing on drainage. I used to work as a senior engineer at the Southwest Florida Water Management District for 20 years. And lot coverage was, kept at a certain, whatever percentage to allow for recharge and to allow excess runoff off the property. And we've said we're going to mitigate for that excess runoff by creating an exfiltration trench in the back of the house.
I think my difficulty is there just seems to be too many options to do this that do not require granting a variance. And I would also go back to it. I mean, it is a large pool. We also have to look at what is the minimum variance. We can't just grant a variance for whatever. We have to grant the minimum variance, and that's all we can do to overcome the hardship.
The lady to my left was proposing we do it in 123. I mean, what would the board be happy with?
Well, I could say my recommendation would be get rid of some concrete and then skip the variance. That's really, I want you to have the pool, but I think all that concrete's, I just don't, a place to do a 3-point turn, we don't need that. but you need less concrete or a pool. It's just gonna be one of the two. That's kind of how I see it, that I want you to have the pool, but it just means get rid of some concrete.
But even if we have the offset balances it all out. We even,
I know, but you just kind of, you got to pick and choose which one matters more. And I guess basically the drainage, I mean, if this is just how I personally feel, that there's a lot of extra concrete there. I'm not used to hearing that the concrete itself saves the structure from water runoff. A driveway is protecting us from the water. I've never even heard that before in my life. Unfortunately, this is the first time I've got it. I could be ignorant to this, but I've never heard that before.
we can't fight with the head of drainage at the DOT.
But okay.
I mean, it's a fact. Like, I learned from him too. I was in the same position as you because I was ready to cut it back there and then. And he was like, no, you cannot.
Well, but I have to go back. I think the problem is that, you know, when you did put the additional concrete in, that was the choice. I mean, that filled up the space. And I realize what you're saying about the side of the house, but and believe me, I'd like to give everybody that comes in here what they want. I truly would. I mean, nobody likes to sit up here and do this, believe me. But looking at what the rules say, looking at what we have the ability to do and what the law we have to follow, it's very difficult to find something, and that's what I'm struggling for. That's why I'm saying if you want to take some more time, another month, and go back, you can, and see if we can come up with something that meets more of a minimum variance, or, you know, see if there's some other way. We can certainly grant that, but right now,
What is that number?
What would the board support?
we can't give you a number. All I can say is the minimum, but that's going to
I
be.
don't want to come back every month. And you don't want to see me every month.
Well, no.
You,
But what I'm trying to offer you is, what I'm saying is and I think, you know, you said that very clearly. You can hear from the questions we're asking, you know, where this is headed, and I just don't want to I want to give you the opportunity to try to get what you want. I will vote if you want, but it's.
I'm coming back
Okay.
every month.
I was gonna say, can I say
But what's that? You have to help me with a number.
Wait, hang on one second. Okay, go ahead. Did you want to finish your statement? Go.
Just help me with a number. What's that number?
I would say you buy some land, get rid of some of the concrete, and you buy yourself more land. I don't know.
But
this
how
is
much?
No land.
Okay, well.
You can get rid of some.
All right,
It's go around the whole
hang on,
house.
let's say, hang on, we can't.
At all.
I mean, we'll do everything we can to help, but you're gonna have to make some decisions, and I wanted to give you the opportunity too, but, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think we can't give you a number. That's not our job, right? We can't give you a number. But what I can say is like I said, that concrete path you have leading to your front door, if you're going to remove that and you're showing that you are, reducing the concrete on your land, and you may need to reduce the size of your pool. I have a pool. I recognize the beauty of having a very large pool, but I also recognize that it is what it is when it comes to how much of your land you're covering. If you want to keep every aspect of the driveway and all the rest of the concrete, the pool's going to have to go down in size.
So I hear everything you're saying. I just have one question. Why is the swale not acceptable? The swale, the offset, why is that not acceptable? Because
It's gonna create recharge. It's gonna offset the
Dallas
adverse
actually said
impact.
it was acceptable.
The reason was because the pool itself isn't like a right. That's kind of why, like, it's not, like, by not allowing the pool, it doesn't create basically, it's like not a fundamental right breach to not give you the pool. That's the issue here, is that you have the land use for the house itself.
I mean,
So it's not a regulatory taking by the, by having the pool. I remember this in law school very well, doing something very similar to this and also through these problems, but it just isn't a regulatory taking by not letting you have the pool, basically. And you have 123 feet for it, but I really think, though, basically, I mean, I keep saying this like a broken record, you have a lot of extra concrete, and I want you to have the pool, but you have the room if you don't have so much concrete. That's basically, that's kind of really the solution here, is picking between the two.
But we're still saying a variance will be acceptable, just not this much.
Potentially, well, I think basically, the hint is, because we don't want to say what the amount is, but by reducing the pool size maybe a little bit and reducing the concrete a little bit, then you can have a pool that you can agree with and a little bit less concrete. So I actually, if you could get rid of a lot of concrete, you could build the pool you want probably without having to get a variance at all. And
I can't without the house.
I know, but it's still which one you got to pick though.
Yeah, so let me, Yeah, part of the reason we can't give you a number, because there's a few things that have to happen. Number one, we have to grant the minimum variance. Well, I don't know what you're intending to do. We would need to see what you're doing and see what remains. We also need to have the city have the opportunity to respond to it as well. I think, you can look and see where we are, that, how much concrete would have to go to build the pool without even having to come back and get the variance. If they, there seem to be things here, but they're not things that we can say yes to. But if you can come back with something and say, hey, this is the absolute most we can do, and all of the other stuff you're doing, then we can certainly take a look at it. But I'm kind of with everybody else. I think you can do this without even having to come back. It's just going to be a matter of some choices. But if you want to try and see where you get, and then come back and say, hey, we've reworked this, we've talked to the city, what all the cases may be, then we will certainly listen to all the evidence being presented again.
The city is saying no to any variance. Where does that leave me?
We didn't actually ever.
No, not you guys, these guys.
Well, we're the ones who vote on the variance if we're going to accept it or not, and we didn't vote yet, technically. But you've heard the attitude of the board is basically how my hunch is basically, unless I'm presented probably a lot more about, I'd say my issue is mostly just, there's a lot of concrete around your house. I've never seen that much concrete around a house in Temple Terrace before, except for yours. And because of that, I've never heard the argument before the concrete itself was put there with something to do with the stopping the drainage. And we've also, so my thing is, I'm like, if you want the pool, the reaction is, I don't know if this is an actual hardship or not, but if it is, it's curable. If it's not a hardship, the way to get around it is to get rid of some concrete. I mean, whenever I heard you say, what's the point of the extra block in the front, you heard the 3-point turn. Well, we don't need, which one is it going to be, the 3-point turn or the swimming pool?
Well, I actually got denied for a circular drive, which is what I wanted, and that would have made everything a lot easier. And then we wouldn't have had so much slag in the first place.
Well, I'm going to say, I think I will ask the board in just a moment if they got any more questions, but I think everybody's made their points.
Yeah.
I think everybody's really, I think we're all really clear on that, where we've got to go. I don't know that I can give you any more answers than we've already given you right now. But what I am going to do, let me ask this question. Does the board have any other questions that we need to ask at this point? And I mean, actually, questions as opposed to comments.
No.
All right.
Can I have a closing comment?
That's where I'm getting to in just a moment. Okay, then at this point, I'm going to, in light of all the comments that have been and everything else, you have 5 minutes for any rebuttals you would like to do. We'll go ahead and start that now. So that's back over to you, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate the city vigorously defending their land development code, but the other municipalities around Hillsborough County, for a single-family residence, it doesn't have lot coverage. You can pretty much maximize. You can corner to corner you can put in a building. So I just want to point out that differential. And the other thing is with the city of Tampa, if you go over the 50% or 55% or whatever it is that is mandated in the law in their code, you can offset it by creating storage on the site. So, and we've offered those options. Thank you.
Quick question. Do I have to keep paying for the variance application every month then?
No.
No. Keep me on, no, if we're continuing it, which we will have to vote on that, but if it's continued, sorry.
So the applicant has the option of asking for you to vote on it tonight, or asking for a continuance. What she would have to pay for if she asks for a continuance is the legal ad.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Right, thank you for your time, all of you.
And I will say,
She also has the option of withdrawing her request, so there were three options.
Okay, 3. So the one thing I will say on that, what you have, and I will tell you this from the board, is that, what the points that you're making, I completely understand. You're in the right room, but you've got the wrong people up here. The city commission is the one that needs to do that. We actually even asked them as a board to go back and review the rules and regulations for pools and everything else, but that's not something we can do here. All we can do with this board is deal with the variance in the land. I completely understand everything you're saying, but we can't change that. The rules the ordinances have to change, the zoning has to change. I would encourage anybody who wants that to come and talk to your elected officials and work on that, but that's not what we can do. But what I can now, and I think, the city attorney just brought it up. I can give you three choices at this point. We can go ahead and vote, which we will if you want. You can ask for, you can ask for a continuance, or you can withdraw the application.
I heard y'all. We'll do the continuance.
Okay, would you like to ask for a continuance?
May I have a continuance?
Okay, do I have a motion on the continuance?
So moved.
I third.
So, okay, well, I think we know what this debate is. Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Right. When is going to be the next date now? Is that,
So that is going to be April 25th will be the next date then. If that is okay with,
is that enough time? Is that date available to you, and is that enough time? That's,
Well, it's available. I'm going to ask. I'm away from the 1st to the 17th of April.
I'll be
So
around.
yeah, we'll take it.
we also need to make sure that we're gonna have a quorum. So we need to make, are any of you unavailable that day? So I'm
I'm
guaranteed
good.
at least 4 people that
just
day.
checked.
You're
I'm good.
unavailable. Okay, so as of right now, I have 2 other people, so I don't know that I have a quorum until I speak to them. Because as of right now, I don't have a quorum for that date.
okay.
I would have to speak to the other 2 people, before I know whether or not we are able to do it on the 25th.
Are we all available? Yes.
Yep.
I'm not available.
She's not available.
She's not available and it's 4 on this one. You are available, but I still have to find 1 more.
I'll do it.
So we can go ahead, can we tentatively say April 25th? So we can do that tentatively. If not, it would be May 25th, is that correct?
Yes, I will send an email out on Monday to see if I can get anybody else for a definite for that date. And if not, then we'll move it to May.
Wait a minute, how can that, I was gonna say, that 25th can't be right. That doesn't, that math doesn't, we can't have April 25th.
25th or May 23rd.
May 23rd, okay. This is 25th, okay, 23rd. That makes more sense.
I'm just going to ask if we could do it in the April because my pool company's kind of pissed.
We are willing, but as she was talking about, there's 5 board members. 1 is going to be absent. We will have to make sure the other alternate is available. We don't have that information right now. That's why I said we're going to tentatively schedule it for April, but if we don't have a quorum, then it doesn't make sense to bring everybody in here. And all I have to do is say we don't have a quorum and we go home. So we're going to try for that, but we've got to verify that we've got enough board members.
Okay. Thank you all.
Okay, any other questions for us? All right, well, just one. Okay, so with that, believe we have the continuance, so we will move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, is there any new business, or is there any matter that the board would like to raise? All right, is there any old business? Okay, the next meeting of the Board of Adjustments is tentatively scheduled for April 25th, 2024 at 6 p.m. If there's no other business to be brought before the board, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the Temple Terrace Board of Adjustment meeting for March 28, 2024 is adjourned, and thank you for everybody that participated.